President Trump has kept both Democrats and Republicans in the dark on what, if anything, he'll do for gun legislation for safety, what he's ever willing to support. Who knows? Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said he will not bring anything to the Senate floor till the president makes clear where he stands. And yesterday, White House advisor Kellyanne Conway did little to clarify the president's position.
So Mitch McConnell says he wants to know what the president will support. Has he made a decision on that?
The president has been actively engaged on the Second Amendment issue the entire time, particularly after the mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton, and then, of course, Odessa after that. And he has talked just this week. I was there. He talked to Republican and Democratic United States senators who also are actively engaged.
I don't hear support for a specific piece of legislation. Does that mean the decision has not yet been made?
There is. Well, there are pieces of legislation that already exist that we have looked at. The president has been briefed on. Many of my colleagues in the West Wing missed their summer vacations. They've been working on this every single day.
Actively engaged. I'm joined right now by Democratic Congresswoman Dina Titus from Nevada, pronounced Nevada, and former Republican Congressman Carlos Cabello. Thank you for the affirmation. I didn't hear jack from Kellyanne Conway there. I think the Democratic leadership has pulled a very smart, pro-American move by saying, here's a firm offer, Mr. President. You sign background check legislation that really fills the loopholes in, and we'll be there to help you celebrate it on the Rose Garden with flags flying, hail to the chief, the whole works. And he goes back into God knows where to hide. They got him, I think. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree with that. I don't think the president knows what to do. This isn't difficult. This bill has been on the table for over 200 days. It's the least you can do, and it's supported by 90% of the American public. It's real easy to tell Mitch McConnell to get it moving and sign it, and we'll all come over and sing Kumbaya. But he goes back home and gets a phone call from Fox News or from the NRA, and then suddenly he's wavering again.
I think, Carlo, that the president is scared. I can't say the word, but really scared of the NRA.
Chris, if I had to bet, the president personally supports universal background checks. But whenever it comes time to compromise, and maybe that requires him to get at odds with his base a little bit, he struggles with it and he dithers. And I think that's the process we're seeing now. Now, I do think...
Does he want the most far-right vote in the country? That's my hunch. The most crazy-ass, far-out, right-wing, almost whatever, because he's afraid that if he loses any of that from the far right, he'll never make it up in the middle.
For the president, his base is sacred. He knows that he won with a very strong base, people who turned out, people who are very intense about their views. So even though he personally, and I think he's expressed this a number of times, that he does support stronger background checks, politically he's worried that that could cost him in 2020. Now, I do think Dems should also, they have a hard offer out there, and that's good, but they should also express a willingness to negotiate.
Well, here's the question, Congresswoman. I want to ask you about that. I think the Democrats should stay where they've offered. I think they're exactly where they ought to be and not go over the other direction to the left and start talking about confiscation a la Beto, because that's just going to give the NRA what they want. They already got Beto as their poster boy. You don't want the Democratic Party to be on that face. Your thoughts?
Well, that's right. This is a minimum. You don't back up from the minimum. And as I said before, 90% of the public, including gun owners, support this. So to say the president believes in his heart, but he won't do it, is like saying we're offering thoughts and prayers to the victims. Here it is. Let's get it done. The House has passed 2 of these bills. The House Judiciary Committee has passed 3 additional bills. Next week, they're going to have a hearing in Judiciary on assault weapons. It's not something that you can back up from. This is the minimum.
Well, presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg pushed back yesterday on fellow candidate Beto O'Rourke's tough talk on gun control, including his proposal for a mandatory buyback for weapons like AR-15s. Here's what Buttigieg told CNN yesterday.
Did Beto O'Rourke say something that's playing into the hands of Republicans?
Yes. Look, right now, we have an amazing moment on our hands. We have agreement among the American people for not just universal background checks, but we have a majority in favor of red flag laws, high-capacity magazines, banning the new sale of assault weapons. This is a golden moment to finally do something.
Well, Former Congressman O'Rourke responded on Twitter, writing, leaving millions of weapons of war on the streets because Trump and McConnell are at least pretending to be open to reforms. That calculation and fear is what got us here in the first place. Well, I don't know about Beto on this one. Beto's getting a lot of good ink on this because
Chris,
he's showing a lot of passion. The question is he hurting the Democratic Party position?
Beto is doing what the president does. He's going for his base. He's going for those hardcore Democratic voters. And obviously in a primary, that might be smart politically. But what Buttigieg is doing is saying, hey, if the president's going to go all base, I'm going to try to go for those centrist voters in the middle that can actually deliver.
You're being nicer than I am. Congresswoman, how do you buy back by 10 million AR-15s and other assault weapons? Mandatory. You must turn them in. This is confiscation. I think Pete Buttigieg, the mayor, is right. Don't screw up your position when it's really strong.
Well, I agree with the mayor because he mentioned all the bills that we have passed or introduced, including the one that I'm a major co-sponsor of about the multiple clips. That you don't need more than 10 bullets at one time. That's what's caused all of the harm in the most recent egregious shootings. Beto's put that out as a goal. If you want to get some of those weapons off, first you outlaw the sale of future assault weapons. Right. Then you do a voluntary buyback. Maybe you use tax credits to get people to turn them in. But you're going to see that clip over and over again because the NRA won't say that Beto wanted to take your assault weapons. They just say the Democrats are coming for your guns, which is not true.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.